Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some amazing, delicious cream puffs. So let's get started. First off, into a medium pot, I'm adding 1.5 cups of whole milk and 1/2 cup of heavy cream. This is going to be the base for our custard. A cream puff is a light as air, crisp choux pastry filled with a crème pâtissière, which is like a beautiful, silky vanilla custard. We're making the custard first because it has to chill. The flavor for this is going to be vanilla, so we want 1 vanilla bean. If you don't have a vanilla bean, I would grab a tablespoon of vanilla extract or a vanilla bean paste. Split your bean down the middle, and we're going to use a knife to grab the seeds. Add your vanilla seeds into your milk and cream. You're going to want to grab a whisk, and if possible, make it a narrow whisk. A balloon whisk has difficulty getting into the corner of your pot, and you don't want to have any scalded milk. Let's place this over medium-high heat. We're going to bring this to a boil, stirring occasionally and doing something else in the meantime. This custard is so easy, but it requires some multitasking. So while that's coming to a boil and you're stirring occasionally, we're going to whisk together our sugar, cornstarch, and salt, as well as the egg yolks. 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar, 133 grams, 1/4 teaspoon of salt for some balance, and 1/4 cup of cornstarch. The egg yolks are gonna help the custard set. The cornstarch is like a little bit of an insurance policy. It'll really make sure that it does set. Now we can whisk this together. A balloon whisk is fine this time. We're mixing this in part to make sure there's no lumps of cornstarch hanging around. It's all incorporated with the sugar and salt. So the narrow whisk really is able to hit the corner of the pot, and it just helps to make sure that nothing scalds and the texture changes. By the way, a vanilla bean versus vanilla extract, they're both gonna taste almost the same and they're both delicious. The only benefit, in my opinion, for the vanilla bean or vanilla bean paste is you see this beautiful sea of black seeds and just makes it look a little bit more elegant. But either is fine. This is getting close, keep a close eye on it. In the meantime, we're gonna crack some eggs. So the star ingredient in this entire recipe is eggs. It's an egg-forward recipe, and the custard will use 6 egg yolks. So I'm separating them out individually, and we're gonna plop those in. I don't have a sweet tooth. Even though I love desserts, I have a cream tooth. I love creamy desserts, and anything with crème pâtissière is a favorite. So cream puffs and eclairs are really at the top of my list. I could eat the entire batch of this and feel amazing with 0 guilt. 3, my milk is steaming. It's just come to a boil, and I'm gonna take it off heat while I finish my eggs. It's totally fine for it to cool down a bit. In fact, we would really want that, to let the vanilla infuse like a delicious tea. Egg 4, 5, and 6. You're gonna whisk this mixture until you get a nice, beautiful, light yellow pastel color. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new delicious recipes every single week. And by the way, a crème pâtissière is so versatile. You could use it to fill cream puffs, you can use it to fill eclairs, you could use it to fill delicious cakes. A custard cake is one of my all-time favorite flavors, if anyone wants to make me a birthday cake. And of course, it can be the base for a lovely classic French fruit tart. So with just a little bit of mixing, I have a lovely pale yellow color, and we're ready to start tempering the mixture. We have some hot milk, we have an egg mixture, and if you poured this in right now, you could scramble the eggs, and that'd be unfortunate because they would not be silky, they'd be chunky. So we're gonna temper the mixture, which means taking 1/2 cup of the hot mixture, drizzling it in while we whisk, and then you're gonna add more. I put this on a silicone mat so my bowl doesn't slip. Otherwise, have a friend hold the bowl for you. Just take a splash, whisk, 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 and let it drizzle in slowly. This is warming the mixture up, and it's going to prevent that scrambled egg situation. And you're like, right now we have raw egg yolks and hot milk. We're gonna cook all the egg yolks again, so it's food safe. And so the yolk sets. Now that our mixture's been tempered, we can slowly drizzle in the rest of the hot milk. Now that this is all mixed in, we're going to strain the mixture back into our pot. Get all those vanilla beans out if you use them because they sink to the bottom. If any milk got scalded or if there were any little weird egg bits, the strainer will catch it and your custard will be silky smooth. This pot is gonna go back over medium-high heat to cook and set the custard. In the meantime, grab 1 tablespoon of cold butter and have it ready because that is the final step, which is really easy to forget. Grab your whisk, we're gonna be hanging out at the stove. Medium-high heat, and you're just gonna be whisking constantly. This is the stage where things could go wrong. They won't if you keep whisking, but if you just walked away for a minute, you're like, oh, I have some time. No, that's the minute this will choose to burn and you'll be sad. So just give it a good whisk. I like to start in the center and work out to the edge, and just repeat that until it's thickened. You'll notice it's ready when, yes, the texture is thicker, but it has these kind of big burps as opposed to bubbles, like bloop, 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 just like that. But for now, it'll be like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, it's done. There's no in between. This recipe is, of course, a French delight. Coming from the 1540s, the head chef of Catherine de Medici. Oh, whoa, I stopped talking to you for 1 second and it's basically there. Okay, so go fast. So you can see, just like that, it thickened up. Okay. Here we go. So as I was saying, Catherine de Medici's chef created this delicacy and it's become so popular all around the world. In French, it's a profiterole or profiterole, and it's also known as a choux à la crème because the pastry we make is called choux, but that's the next step. For now, grab 1 tablespoon of butter. We're gonna plop this in and just whisk, whisk, whisk until the butter's melted. This 1 tablespoon of butter makes all the difference. It gives you a lovely, just silky mouthfeel and really transforms the custard. Even just from adding it in right now, you can see it's getting much silkier. Looks gorgeous. And by the way, if you're like, I don't have time for this, I understand. You could just make whipped cream and fill your choux pastries with whipped cream, or even just a scoop of ice cream. They will be delicious. Everyone will still love it. This is just the classic way to do it and my favorite, to be honest. Today we're making a vanilla cream puff, but you can add any of your favorite flavors. Some melted chocolate to make it a chocolate custard. I've done passion fruit puree to add that in and like get a lovely tropical vibe. Add some spices, really it's up to you. So once you get the recipe down, experiment and try flavors that you love. This is silky smooth, all mixed up. We're gonna transfer this to a bowl now and let it cool in the fridge for about 2 hours to overnight, so it'll be nice and pipeable by the time our choux done. If you have any clinging to the whisk, that's your special treat for doing all the hard work. So good. We don't want the skin to develop, so grab some cling wrap or parchment paper and just press that down. And just like that, it's ready to go into the fridge. If you were wondering what this extra cup of cream was for, you can make more filling and lighten it up by folding in some whipped cream at the very end. This is gonna be called crème diplomate, which is another variation. But for now, both of these go into the fridge. Towards the end of your chill time, when you're ready to start your choux, preheat your oven to 425 so it is nice and hot. While our pastry cream is chilling, we can make our choux. And choux is just a very simple puff pastry. Unlike a normal puff pastry with layers of butter and everything else, this is just gonna be a very eggy, slack, silky dough we make on the stovetop. Super easy, but the only thing is you have to have everything prepped out because it's extremely fast. So I have 1 cup of water measured out. I'm gonna measure out 1 cup of flour, 120 grams. And if you can make choux, you can make cream puffs or eclairs And they're both so good and they look really fancy, but they're easy as could be. Okay, so we measured our flour out. I also want a half a cup of butter, and I'm just gonna cut it into tablespoon-sized pieces. Now, grab a medium pot, a heavy one if you can. To the pot, we're gonna add 1 cup of water, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, just to slightly sweeten and soften our dough, and half a teaspoon of salt. As well as our butter, just plop it in tablespoon-sized pieces. It just helps it melt faster. Now we're gonna bring this onto medium-high heat and let it come to a rolling boil, but make sure you have your flour ready. So this part of the recipe is foolproof. It can't go wrong. There is just one tricky step here, and that's when we add the eggs, because normally you'll add, I think, 3 eggs. But sometimes you have to add a little bit more because the dough has to have the right level of slack to it. But if you add too many eggs, anything you make with the choux will be flat, it won't hold its shape. You want it to have a beautiful, like tall, proud, airy structure. It's gonna be almost completely hollow in the middle. And to do that, you have to have just the right amount of liquid added. But I'll show you what it looks like, so don't worry. I've actually only messed it up once, and that one time was for a YouTube video. I was so embarrassed, but I did include it so you can see what it looks like. That's in my eclairs video, so I'll try and put a link up here for that. So the butter's almost melted. This is gonna come to a rolling boil really quickly. As soon as it comes to a boil, take it off heat, and we're gonna dump in the flour and stir your little heart out. It'll form a ball of dough, and then once it pulls away from the pot, it's about a minute of stirring, you're gonna put it back onto heat to cook it for 30 seconds. It might sound confusing, but it's gonna be super simple once you see it. It just came to a rolling boil. Take a look, take it off heat, dump in your flour, and we're gonna stir, stir, stir. Come take a look. Stir, stir, stir. It smells so good already. And really quickly, it starts kind of forming a ball and pulling away from the pan. It's not as much work as it looks like. Okay, that looks good. Back onto medium heat this time. And we're going to cook the flour for a minute. So just stir, 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 and you'll see it only forms more of a ball and keeps not wanting to stick to the pan. This was the hard part. The rest is just adding eggs in one at a time until it gets the right consistency. That is so simple, and this is like such a good, delicious thing to make. 1 minute later, I can take this off heat. This could cool down for a second. You're not in a rush anymore. Grab your stand mixer and a paddle attachment and some room temperature eggs. This is too hot for our eggs, so we're gonna plop it into our mixer, pop your paddle attachment on, and we're gonna mix this on like medium-low for 2 minutes just to help it cool down. If this flour mixture was too hot, it would just cook the egg, and instead of having a lovely, silky, delicious choux, you'd have like nasty choux with scrambled eggs mixed in. No. So let's just cool it down. While this mixes, go ahead and grab a small bowl and your first egg. We're gonna crack it into the bowl. And today we're just on shell patrol. You did so much work, you strained, you used your whisk, you didn't slack, so you don't wanna have any horrible crunchy texture from an eggshell now. It's been about 2 minutes. I want you to take a close look at the texture as it changes. So right now it has like a Play-Doh consistency. Let's add the first egg in. You'll notice it getting slacker and smoother and just more cohesive, less little pieces if you pull it apart. After that first egg, take a look, scrape the bowl down, and then we're gonna repeat with the next 2 eggs. So I love cream puffs and eclairs, but my one gripe is that when you buy them, they've normally been made well in advance. Shell. They've been made well in advance, so you're gonna have a pastry that's kind of soggy. If it's fresh, it's gonna be crisp and light. It hasn't absorbed any moisture yet, and it's kind of magical. So when you make them at home, you're gonna be shocked by how much more delicious they are, because everything's fresh. And you know what you put into it. There's no preservatives, there's no science magic, it's just delicious ingredients. So notice it's getting more silky, more stretchy, but it's still pretty chunky. It's not falling gracefully off of our beater. It definitely needs some more moisture added to it. So scrape that bowl down one more time. Let's crack our third and perhaps final egg. Look for shells, dump it in, and let's mix on medium and see how it turns out. This is the point where 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be done. So the way I wrote this recipe, it says, the dough should be thick, but fall gracefully and slowly from the beater. So just one more time, the mixer's off. It's falling slowly, it's not breaking, it's stretching, and it's just gracefully falling down. Very silky, but not too runny. Get all the choux off of your beater, and now we're gonna transfer this to a piping bag. You could just use a bag and snip the tip off, even including in the Ziploc bags. But I'm gonna use a proper piping bag, and I wanna show you the difference between a round tip and an open star tip. An open star tip is supposed to give the choux more control as it puffs and rises in the oven, leading to less cracking. Both will work though, and I wanna show you the difference to see if you can even tell. When you fill your piping bags, it's important not to overfill them, then they become unmanageable. So just make sure they're nowhere near full. And by the way, like after this is in a piping bag, the choux can sit in the fridge for a few hours. No big deal if you wanna go do something else. And you could also bake your puffs up and then fill them later. You can bake them up to 3 days in advance. You might just have to re-crisp them in the oven at 300 for maybe 10 minutes. And if you're wondering what's the difference between an eclair and a cream puff, well, it's really just the shape and the topping. Traditionally, a cream puff is just gonna be naked with a little dusting of powdered sugar. An eclair is gonna be bar-shaped, and they're almost always dipped into a ganache, so they have like a lovely chocolate richness about them. Our bags are filled, and now you can grab 1 or 2 rimmed parchment-lined baking sheets. If you want, you can use a little dot of the choux as glue to hold down your paper. That way it won't shimmy around too much. Now we're gonna pipe mounds that are about 2 inches in diameter and 1 inch high. And don't worry if they don't look perfect. We're gonna fix all the problems later. It's fine if they look like little Hershey's Kisses right now. It'll get fixed. Tap your clean finger in some water, and then we're just going to use that to press these spires down. They will burn in the oven and it's not cool. So you want it to be like a little dome, not a gnome's hat. Repeat that same process with your other piping tip or for the rest of the dough. So hold your piping tip like maybe 1 inch above the surface, then squeeze and it'll form the correct shape. You don't start at the bottom. So hover, squeeze, and then stop squeezing and twist. That'll release the choux dough. It's kind of like glue almost, so it's a bit tricky. Use your damp finger, tap it down again for any ridges that are hanging out. These ones actually turned out better as far as my piping. I had more control. Our puffs are ready to bake 425 for 20 minutes or until they're puffed and golden. But the second that happens, we're gonna pull them out of the oven and do some work, then pop them back in. When these come out of the oven, they'll feel crisp, but when they sit for a moment, they start softening up because there's too much steam inside. So we're poking holes on the side to allow the steam to escape, and they go back into the oven for 3 more minutes at 425 to finish crisping and drying. In you go. As soon as these guys come out of the oven the second time, transfer them to a wire rack. Just like when you make waffles, you want the steam to escape, and the wire rack is gonna help that. If you left them to cool here, they would just get soggy. So wire rack, let them cool completely, and then we're going to get to the assembly. My first batch is already on the cooling rack. I'm just placing the piped ones with the star tip. They both came out great. I would say the star tip has like a little bit better shape. So a little bit prettier, a little bit better shape, totally up to you. My pastry cream is chilled. My puffs are nice and cool, so it's time to whip some cream. Like I said earlier, 1 cup of heavy cream gets whipped up until it has nice soft peaks. And then we're gonna fold that into the custard. That'll lighten things up and also give you more filling for bigger puffs. So gradually increase speed to high, and then we're gonna whip this up just until we have beautiful, luscious, soft peaks. In fairness, I've been reminded that there's stiff peaks, but they shouldn't be too stiff because then they'll lose their beautiful, luscious texture. A lot of the heavy creams you can buy have things added to them, which just makes them whip less beautifully. So really be careful about over whipping because it'll turn into butter. Nobody wants that. So right now I have soft peaks, but I'm gonna finish this by hand. I never finish using the electric mixer because I find it's too easy to overmix. So grab a whisk and just finish whipping it up. There we go. Perfect, soft, stiff peaks. So our pastry cream looks a little bit crazy once it's chilled. It is too firm, but don't worry, we're gonna fix everything. You can do this by hand or with your hand mixer, but we're just going to whisk it up so it kind of loosens its consistency once again. See, really quickly it finds its path. Now it's gotten silkier and looser, and it's time to fold in the whipped cream. Transfer your whipped cream into the pastry cream. Use your spatula to fold the whipped cream in until no streaks remain. After some gentle folding, it's lighter, it's looser, and there's no streaks, which can only mean it's time to pop this into a piping bag and pump our puffs full of deliciousness. Transfer this to a piping bag, and you have a couple choices. You could just like cut a little hole in the bottom and fill them up, or you can cut them like sandwiches and do a decorative piping, which is what I'm gonna do today. For a decorative piping look, you'll want to use a star tip, and I suggest like a medium closed star tip. Not gonna overfill my bag. And just so you can see, this was the plain tip, this was the star tip for piping out the actual choux, and the star tip just gives you a little bit more beautiful puff. They're equally delicious, so if you're piping using a Ziploc bag that you cut the tip off of, just know it'll be delicious, and don't worry about it. Grab your puff, and we're going to cut it just like a little sandwich. You might have some little soft strands of choux on the inside. You could pull those out just to make room for more cream. Now we're gonna pipe some cream into the middle and close our sandwich, just like that. Repeat that process for all of your puffs, and as you go along, you'll kind of understand like how much cream should I be adding to have like a nice puff, or, you know, what's this gonna look like? Basically, the more you do it, the better you'll get. It's called practice. So pretty, I love the way these look. Once your puffs are all filled, finish them with a dusting of powdered sugar, and just like that, they're ready to enjoy. These cream puffs are best enjoyed within a few hours of assembly, but any leftovers can be kept in an airtight container in the fridge for up to 2 days. I have been looking forward to this the entire video. Creamy, light, vanilla custard perfection. And the choux is so light as air, it's almost just like magic. I hope you get a chance to make this delicious recipe, and if you like my videos, check out my French playlist.